how nice is that? Having a beer in your backyard with another couple that has similar aged kids. The kids are playing, not bothering you at all. You know, like that exists. It's just, I think a lot of people are too afraid to ask for those digits. Feels pathetic. Oh, what, you don't have friends? You don't have friends of your own? You want to be my friend? This guy thought that we would be his fucking friend.
Get in line. Take a fucking number, you loser.
Fucking loser. Okay, so
yeah.
Record the intro now.
So what did Milkless? Because I think we start with a name.
Two dads. We love our kids, but then we also need them to know that we're like pretty cool and it's not like a wimpy podcast. So, hey, hey, Milkless.
Hey, welcome. Hey,
Milkless. Call the audience, Milkless. What's up, Milkless? Max, coming at you.
What if that's it? That's our first take. On this episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about something that's a little more amorphous. Talking about that process when you have babies, about how for a while there you just feel like you lose yourself. It happens to almost all of us. You lose track of what your marriage once was. You lose track of the things that used to make you feel like yourself. So what does that feel like to go through that? What are the ways in which you can kind of snatch pieces of yourself even in that high intensity baby phase? And then how do you work your way back toward being a full human being who exists independent of their kids, while allowing that human being to maybe be a pretty different guy than you were before this whole fucking thing started? It's kind of a weird one, a little looser, but man, I feel like this is something a lot of people feel. So Max and I are going to do our best to get into it. Hope it resonates. Here we go.
So what are we talking about here? And did you see this coming, that it was going to be a metamorphosis for you? And what are we going to try to articulate today?
Yeah, I really like this topic, but it is also harder to put your finger on. There's the practical element of suddenly you have much less free time. You have less time to pursue your own time-consuming interests. I looked in my garage yesterday, and there are spider webs all the way up my set of golf clubs. So there's that practical element to it, but I think the thing that I felt less prepared for, I guess, and has felt more kind of existentially ground shifting is this idea of not being in the center of my own universe anymore, which is, I think, it has been one of the greatest parts about parenting. Like, you worry about your own shit a little bit less. You're a little less narcissistic. It's a little bit less like, oh, I need to light the world on fire, or what am I even doing here? But there's also, to me, there was some real emotional displacement of not feeling like my life was my own in the way that it once had been, I guess.
I was all stoked about being a dad, and then the first 2 weeks happened, and it was like, I'm not really liking this. I kind of kept on a happy face. And then when I told people, I'm like, yeah, so I know you have kids and you love them and stuff, but like, this is really shitty. And they're like, oh yeah. Oh, yeah. It sucks so bad at the beginning. I'm like, why didn't you?
Didn't anybody tell me this?
Everyone's like, yeah, the beauty of children. It's the greatest thing that ever happens to you. And I feel that way now when my kids are older and I just skied a powder day with our 7-year-old and like had the best day of my life. But it takes time and work. And especially at the beginning, it is not fun. Mm-hmm. You're just giving yourself to something. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was a new thing where when someone needs you for survival, something clicks on. They're the most important thing in the world to keep them alive, keep them safe. So that's a very interesting feeling to have that level of responsibility. Mm-hmm. The thing I think we're talking about today is, how do you then crawl back out of that hole after the 2 weeks, after the 3 months?
I mean, after the 2+ years, yeah. I mean, there is a stage that we're entering with our baby right now, who's 9 months old, of just hyper fucking vigilance.
Yeah.
3 to 6 months in some ways I feel like is easier than like 9 months to 15 months, you know?
Right.
Because you can just put them in a place and then when you come back, they'll still be there. I feel like that stage of just hyper need lasts a lot longer.
Yeah.
One of the things that made this weird and confusing for me, and this is actually a phase I'm in now after 9 months, but I get into this thing where it's strange because I will feel so fulfilled in that way of, oh man, I feel so needed. It feels cozy at home and I feel like I'm in the sticky, gooey middle of life. But there's this other part of me that is like, I don't feel like the world is filled with possibilities these days. I don't feel like the sexy guy that does cool shit.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I eat as well. I don't get as much exercise. I don't even really remember when I was cool. And I can't even really feel the things that I'm not doing anymore. But I feel this kind of lack. So it's weird that your cup can be so filled in some ways, and yet there is this other cup that nags at you.
I think one of the things that is important is to remember that we go through phases, and it's okay to get into that zone, just knowing that the inner you is not dead. Mm-hmm. Like I remember when we have 3 kids. I didn't really play guitar when they were babies, and I like playing guitar by myself and singing and stuff. So I kind of hung it up, but I would look at it and I'd be like, I'll be back to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's gone forever.
Yeah.
Slowly you gain a little bit more of who you are back, slowly. Mm-hmm. And more so through the child's life.
My wife said something that was really helpful to me. You know, you hear life is short all the time. She said, it is important to remember that life is also long. And this is a period of 9 months, 12 months, 15 months, where, yes, your cup is unfilled in some ways. And this has been more profound for my wife than it has for me, because I still will go on a work trip. And also for moms, there's this way in which, like, not only do they give up their time and all this thing, but they give up their body in a lot of ways that we don't have to.
Yeah, for sure.
But she's just always said life is long, and there are 15 months out of your life where you're just going to get to hold an infant that will just love nothing more than to be in your arms. And so some other things go by the wayside, but knowing that life is long, okay, well, let's lean into the part of your cup that does really get filled and not panic that those other things won't ever come back.
Right.
I think that's what I'm always trying to talk myself out of, is the panic that, like, oh, this is how it is now.
Something that really helps me is I find the hobby of being a dad very fun. Mm-hmm. So that's like a new hobby. It's like, oh, I'm parenting now. That's fun. So it's kind of like, just like
a forced hobby, a constant forced hobby
forever.
I am with you. I love it. But yeah, it's not like, no, I don't want to go fishing today. Well, guess what? You're going to fucking fish for 13 hours.
Yeah. But so there's a way to make it fun. Mm-hmm. If you like adventure, you know, we put our 3-year-old in the front sitting on it, and we'll go mountain biking with a 3-year-old, kind of over semi-technical terrain that I know I would never fall in a million years. Knock on wood. That's fun. I remember before we had kids, we kind of said, and I think a lot of people do, we're not going to change. We're still going to keep doing this. We're going to still keep doing that.
She's going to strap on the baby.
Yeah.
We said that a lot.
It works. Like going out to a beer garden with a baby in a stroller. Mm-hmm. It's not allowed in Utah, but it was in Boston.
Oh, bummer.
Kids aren't allowed. But, you know, doing things, going out of the house. Because I think and this is just life in general, it's very, very easy to get stuck.
Yeah.
Okay. You're very tired. It seems easy to just eat like crap and just watch TV all day and just hold the baby.
Be at the house.
Right.
Just be at the house where all the stuff is.
That's so much easier.
Yeah.
But then, no, it's like weird. You schlep all the shit out of the house. You pack the water, the snacks, the this, the that, and you go on an outdoor adventure, or you do something with the kids that gives you joy too.
Yeah.
It's such a better day.
It is. It is. And I think that is a good philosophy to bring to it. But there are also certain things, dude, that just doesn't work. You know, it's not fun to go to a nice restaurant with a toddler.
Right.
If it involves a real late night, if it involves a big crowd of people and it's loud, there's just some stuff that it's like, yeah, you can strap the baby on and bring him if you want to have a crying baby.
Right.
So I believe in that, but also like there's some realities to that, you know?
Yeah, 100%. But it's still having that be the ideal. If you don't, you'll just all of a sudden be on a treadmill of life.
Yeah.
It's tummy time. It's soccer practice. It's karate. It's, you know, and then all of a sudden you're just shuttling and you're a supporting actor.
You will be the giving tree.
There's a study that came out from the American Journal of Sociology that U.S. has a 12% happiness penalty for parents. So basically, U.S. has pretty happy people, but when you have kids, they're typically 12% less happy than people without kids. And I don't know exactly why. They drew some conclusions. My conclusion on that would be, I think, American culture. I mean, think about it. What would you rather have for a parent? A parent that's shuttling you around everywhere where you're scheduled to the nines, but they're stressed as fuck and not happy. Or a parent that maybe takes you around to a couple things, but is so happy, having a great life. You want happy parents.
Which is why I think The Giving Tree is kind of a fucked up story, that the idea that the ultimate version of parenting is martyrdom.
So being intentional about what makes me happy, how can I combine that with being a parent? That's the money right there.
Yeah. Whenever you can merge those things that make you really feel like yourself with your kids, that's fantastic. But I don't think it can do everything for you. I don't think you can scratch all of your itches while also taking care of a human.
Right.
I have once a week I meet a guy and I play tennis against him. It's competitive, it's physical, and like that shit is on the calendar, and that I treat that like a business meeting. Like, no, this is protected. And I get everybody to bed, and then I go and I play late, and then I come home and I do the dishes. There's a lot of effort that goes into protecting that time, but I think of that time as really important because I know trying my hardest physically to beat another person at a sport is not an itch I can scratch with my kids around.
Yeah.
It's just a different thing.
100%. A way I fall down a lot, and something I could do better is, especially when I was like working really long hours, really busy, I would prioritize sport like that as well, but only if someone invited me to a team. It was kind of like, randomly. And then I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm on a basketball league. This is amazing. We should do this more. And then that person would like move away, and then the basketball league would fall apart. And then I'd go back to not doing anything.
Yeah. The tennis game, really all credit goes to the guy that I play with who has 2 kids of his own. He moved back to Austin. He lived on the West Coast. He moved back. He texted, hey, I moved back. We should play tennis. And I said, yeah. And then he immediately wrote back and he's like, I mean like a weekly game that is on the calendar every week. And I was kind of like, oh shit. Yeah. Okay. And it just by imposing that structure around it, he was placing a value on it that like, let's put this on the calendar of our lives. And we've been playing for years now. And I look forward to it. I'm playing tonight. I look forward to it every Wednesday. I know that's there.
Standing things are amazing. So when I was really, really busy building the company, I don't think I really had a lot of friends. You know, all of our friends didn't have kids yet, and they were kind of partying a little harder. So my wife and I are like best friends. So we just hung out all the time. But I remember telling her, yeah, something missing in my life is that social aspect. So having those standing things are just so important. You can come home, do the dishes, wipe ass, like whatever. If you have your Wednesday poker night, or bowling league, or whatever it is, you get to talk with other adults.
As you're talking about this, I think we should do an entire episode on friendship. After your immediate family, I think the number one thing you can do to make yourself more joyful is to have close, intimate friendships in your life.
Yeah.
That is something that I've put a lot of work into. At times I've been frustrated by, especially with people that don't have kids. It's like, why am I reaching out to you more than you're reaching out to me, motherfucker? You're just sitting at home playing Halo. I'm wiping ass here. But I don't think you can say it strongly enough that having friendships in your life makes you feel like yourself.
And the thing is, I didn't realize that. And outside of college, I think a lot of people have high school friends. Then if you go to college, you have college friends. And then people move away. And then you have kids at a different, time in life than other people do. So then you have no friends. My parents didn't have friends.
Yeah.
They had their work friends, and then they moved away, and then they don't have friends.
Yeah.
They're super funny, fun, engaging. But I think what happens is we forget how to make friends. And when you're in high school, when you're in college, it's like the thing.
It's easy.
You get to the dorm room, it's like, what's up, man? Like, who are you? Let's be friends. So moving to Amsterdam, we made a concerted effort to prioritize friendship. We actually made an app where people could meet, like a Tinder.
I remember you telling me that. It's like Yeah.
It was called Party of Four, and it was a non-sexual for platonic friendship among couples.
Wow, you're really hitting that hard. Did you get a lot of swingers trying to sign up?
A lot of jokes about swingers.
Okay,
in all the social media, but basically, we met this Dutch crew of friends who were like so incredible, a handful of families. Then they bought an old school building in Amsterdam, converted it to apartments, all with shared gardens in the back. And we bought one of those houses. So we were the only non-Dutch friend in that group. It was like a sitcom. I get invited over for coffee one morning in one of their houses, and another friend just walks in mesh shorts, sits down, starts reading the paper at his friend's dinner, doesn't say hi. And then the best friend's like daughter comes and sits on his lap. And they're like uncles. They're all like best buddies. And it was so cool.
Man, that's the fucking dream, is the village. And we have not set up our world for that. And that is a way that you can feel so much more like yourself in these early phases of life.
Yeah.
God, that's great that y'all did that. That's so cool, man.
So then we learned how to make friends also in Amsterdam because we were expats. And so my wife and I did this thing like, you get any digits today? I got digits. Who'd you get?
I can't imagine why you got all these swinger jokes. I don't know where that came from.
But then we moved to Park City here and we did the same thing. There's a lot of transplants here, not expats, but there's a lot of transplants and other people. And we have this nice big crew.
Taking your kid to the park, just you, versus taking your kid to the park with your buddy who also has his kids, that's a big difference.
Anyone who's done a play date, kids will play with other kids and make your life easier as an adult. How nice is that? Having a beer in your backyard with another couple that has similar aged kids. The kids are playing, not bothering you at all, having fun, and you are having fun with another adult. You know, like that exists. It's just, I think a lot of people are too afraid to ask for those digits. Feels pathetic. Oh, what, you don't have friends? You don't have friends of your own? You want to be my friend? This guy thought that we would be his fucking friend.
Get in line. Take a fucking number, you loser.
Fucking loser.
There were times when I'd take my daughter to a playground, she'd meet another kid and they'd play well, and she'd come up and she'd be like, can you get their number so we can end it? So I would do it, but my follow through on that was weak because I just felt like they'd think I was a swinger. I texted him, it's like, you want to fucking hang out, man?
Yeah, can I get those digits? But that's what it's all about. Is we got conditioned to do that.
Yeah.
So you meet somebody, similar age kids, you're always kind of sniffing them out at a playground. Well, maybe you don't do this. We do. I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, I see we both have 3-year-olds. You got any others? They'll be like, yeah, I got a 5 and a 7. I'm like, I have a 5 and a 7. Do you live in this town?
That's fucking interesting, man.
That's a fucking, I have a 3, 5, and 7. And you kind of like play around, or do we have similar tastes? Maybe you drop a little profanity. See if they reciprocate.
Bring them into the fold.
Then it's like, okay.
It's interesting too. There's the friends that you meet through your kids, and like we've gotten really lucky. Some of our daughter's best friends, their parents just happen to be fucking awesome, which is obviously not totally random. Like good kids are often produced by neat parents. So we've become really, close with some folks that way. But there is this, and my wife is this way, probably even to a greater extent than I am. But I think as I get older, I get more and more this way, that I'm not particularly interested in surface level friendships. Like I don't need buddies that I can just talk about the game with.
Yeah.
If I'm going to hang out with somebody, I want to talk about what's actually happening in life and is interesting and is like, and all that has to do with feelings and with the parts of parenting that don't go perfectly. And so I don't just want to have like, oh yeah, we got a bunch of just casual friends. But I think the way that we've kind of corrected for that, it's a little bit like your litmus test of cursing and, oh, are you cool with this? I just start talking like I really know them. And some people that kind of freaks them out. And it's like, well, this probably isn't, my guy.
Yeah.
But you can kind of accelerate to closeness if you're both in a similar stage of life and have kids in similar stages, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think it's also, if you prioritize making friends, then you sample more people. Like at school pickup or drop off, if you go there, there's a lot of parents standing around making chit chat. So you can kind of sample a lot of them. Anyway, I digress.
Nice.
No, I don't understand how that works.
We'll get there. I mean, like we said, we could probably do a whole episode about friendship. We may have. We got a little bit off course here, but yeah. I do think there's a reason neither of us set off thinking that this episode was necessarily going to be about that, but then we ended up talking about it for 15 minutes. And also, in that early phase, particularly where a lot of your interactions with your wife become about the logistics and the kids, and when like in the baby phase when so much is being asked of mothers, having close friendships takes pressure off the relationship with your wife because they don't have to be the mother to your children and your best friend and your girlfriend and like the coordinator of the household. Like that's a lot for one person. There's
a study that married women without kids, 62% of them are happy in their marriage. Mothers with infants, only 38% are happy with their marriage.
Wow.
So yeah, it puts a lot of pressure there. Okay.
It's a market drop.
Yeah. That is, statistically significant.
Whew. Yeah.
So it's how do you get out of that? Because sometimes we'll check in, my wife and I will just be like, oh man, I haven't really been a good husband to you. I've been a great dad, but I'm not really doing anything for you. Where I used to do that for the 15 years we were together before kids, I was like a really good husband or boyfriend or whatever. So it's just kind of remembering that that's what we want to do. Because how many times have you gotten into a rut where we're just parenting, double teaming these?
A lot of logistics. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's hard and it takes work. You know, you're already exhausted. And then it's like on top of that, you got to find and vet a babysitter that's not going to like kill your kid.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
make a dinner reservation.
Too hard. Let's just get a bottle of wine and just, watch Netflix.
Yeah.
But doing that is so important.
Yeah. One of the other big displacing things for me about having a young kid, I think we share this foible, which is that we like some measure of attention. And
who, me?
No. What? But I remember thinking like 4 months into our first kid, like, wow, my wife really doesn't give a shit about me at all. And there is this time where it's like so much is being asked from her that is probably accurate.
Yeah.
Like theoretically she gives a shit. Like, of course we have a marriage that we're both very fond of, but there's a while where it's just like, I'm tapped out of giving a shit. Also, I'm tapped out of being touched. I'm tapped out of like kind of everything.
Yeah. Or if you get like man flu and you're just like, babe, I'm kind of sick. She's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself. I'm like, yeah, but I thought that you would give me a bowl of soup. She's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I am taking care of 3 kids. And
I got right after our second daughter was born, I slept on this hospital bed for a while. And then I developed this weird nerve thing from just sleeping fucked up. So right after my daughter was born, I was like, is this some kind of fucking permanent?
Yeah.
I didn't even tell my wife for a while. Then I finally brought it up. I was like, I haven't brought it up just because I don't want you to worry. And she just kind of goes, she's like, yeah, I won't. Don't let it hurt your feelings. She's like, okay, fair enough. Yeah. Luckily that shit cleared up. But that is an odd thing. It also, comes back with date nights and with, finding your way back to your relationship. I definitely have felt our first kid, our relationship, it changes so rapidly that I did feel like there was friction there and we really had to find our way back. With our second kid, we're even more practically disconnected from each other because there's so much handing off one kid to another. And when there's a baby and like our bedtime routine right now is like, we don't even watch a show together at night these days.
Right.
But I knew it was coming. And so there's no worry between us about like, have we lost something that we'll never get back? It's more just like, hey, I haven't talked to you in 2 days. Fucking love you. How you doing? Good?
Yeah.
You're the fucking best. You're crushing out there. I'll see you in a few months. And it's kind of fine.
Yeah.
And there's an intimacy in that too of like, just whispered conversations over a sleeping baby. There's like a stolen intimacy to that. That's kind of nice.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. We find our way back after the kids get older. We start to kind of remember, oh yeah, like we could do better for each other. Mm-hmm. Let's do this. Because you got to almost remember like, holy shit, we used to be like really affectionate all the time to each other. When you're in the baby phase, you don't really have time or energy to do that above and beyond stuff. But we got to remember to get back to it.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to like, so what is the goal here? Is the goal truly to get back to the way things were before kids? Or is it to find something different?
I think with my first kid, I felt a lot of angst thinking that the goal was to get back to what I had been before. You don't come back to the same place, right? I mean, it's you are forever changed. For me, there's been some grief with that. I at times find myself, I'll be driving on a sunny day, blasting music, and I'll feel that way for just a beat what you felt when you were like 17 and your driver's license was new and the whole world was your fucking oyster. And then immediately, it's like, I got to be home in 26 minutes because and I have these moments of feeling that, oh, there's a way of being carefree that I don't have access to anymore. It's kind of a funny thing. I remember in my 30s being like, do I feel like a grown-up? Am I a grown-up? I feel like a grown-up now. I don't feel like a kid anymore. And there are things that I miss. And I think that like many things, you just weigh it against the things that you now have.
Yeah.
which is that every day I wake up and I know that there are at least a couple people that really need me to be here.
Yeah. And I mean, I think if you view it as, instead of something happening to you, like kids happened to me, so this stole this part of my life. But if you view it as a somewhat natural metamorphosis of a human mammal, is that we have kids, and it does truly push us into adulthood. You don't need to abandon who you were. It just tweaks certain things. For example, like I used to like ski and mountain bike much more aggressively. And I remember actively thinking, I don't care if I break my collarbone, like do not care. So I'm going to huck this cliff or something. Now I'm terrified of breaking my legs and putting that burden on my wife and having to take care of kids with 2 broken legs. With that said, I still enjoy skiing and mountain biking. It's just different now. And you find new ways to maybe get that 17-year-old feeling. This past year, our 7-year-old skied a 2-foot powder day with me, and it was probably one of the best days of my life.
I've heard you talk about that a lot. I know that kind of day where you're just like, it's perfect.
That is the 17-year-old me. I was hooting and hollering like a 17-year-old. I did have that feeling like wind in my hair just getting my driver's license. It just takes longer. And we have young kids. Our oldest kid between the two of us is 7.
Yeah, true.
We're still in a phase.
Very true.
And there's a lot of data that says people get happier after the kids leave the nest, even though we kind of fear that a little bit, because you have created these amazing human beings that hopefully love you and are well adjusted. But then also that's another phase. It's an extension of instead of 2 weeks, 3 months, 2 years, 18 years.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that more and more you get to bring those things about yourself. You know, the older my daughter gets, the more interesting our adventures are together. I think that maybe what I'm trying to get at is one of the great tragedies of human existence is we can never live all the lives we can imagine. I no longer feel like I have my whole life ahead of me and anything is possible. I've made choices in my life that very intentionally were permanent. And that's helpful for me to think, not of kids, it's just like a natural progression of life, but like I opted into this one. And this, we do not have oops babies. We have expensive science babies. So they were really a choice. But I'll have those moments where I'm driving. I had a moment a couple of days ago with my daughter where it was the morning and we were going to this camp that she likes, like an outdoor nature camp, and we're blasting this new song that she's really into, and we were both singing along. And I had this moment of realizing, oh, this is one of those moments for her. The whole day is in front of her. We're just singing loud and we're driving down the highway. For her, that was that moment of pure carefree. And for me, I had all the other cars in mind. When I drive, I'm extra attentive, obviously, when I'm driving with my kids. I knew I had to get a lot of work to do that day after I got her there. So I felt this immense joy, but the immense joy I was feeling was knowing that she was having this experience, more so than actually having it myself. It is just not about me in the same way it used to be. And it's just different. For so much of my life, the most important thing in my life was I got to make the films. They were in my soul. And I felt like that was my purpose here and that I needed to be doing that. And now I still want to make those things because it is a way that I feel like I can express myself and connect with people. But I don't place the same kind of narcissistic universal importance on that quest that I used to do. I don't think it's the most important thing I do every day.
It's secondary.
And there are parts about that are sad. And I just have to let them be sad and be the cost that I pay for ultimately being happier and more fulfilled than I have been since I was probably fucking 7 years old. I mean, as tired and exhausted and existentially shook up as I am a lot of the time, things are great.
I think sometimes we can look at our old dreams and say, and talk to your past self, like, oh, like almost like you're betraying 23-year-old Matt Naylor.
Yeah.
You know, who's going to whatever, like the only thing that matters is this. And there's something pure about that. Something who is so goal oriented and driven, and it's romantic and it's nice to think about. But it's not, it doesn't have to be sad. If you don't look at it that way, that like that is someone you are letting down, it's more like that was the progression to get me here. And to find new joys. And there's a way to still like love that and not have it be more than the kids.
Yeah.
It can still bring you joy, and it doesn't need to be a ranking. Like, what's your favorite? What's your this? What's your that? Well, kids are number one, and then this is number two, and then, it's just like, it's all your life.
God, that's a great articulation, man. I do think that I think sometimes in terms of like betraying my 18-year-old self, which is a funny thing because it is pure. There is a purity to the idealism of youth in that way and to that singularity of purpose. But it's also like my 18-year-old self didn't know fucking shit.
Yeah.
My 39-year-old self would run circles around my 18-year-old self. And if my 18-year-old self tried to judge me right now, I'd sit him down and tell him he didn't know shit.
Right.
But I don't mind grieving some of those things. I think it's valuable to acknowledge the ways that you pay for the things that you care about. I need to acknowledge them so I don't feel like I'm missing them because I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
When I got married, I didn't stop the part of me that had once enjoyed the chase of women. It's not like that part just evaporated. It just was not as important to me as the thing that I had chosen. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't have both. So this is what I'm doing. And so to me, what helps that grief around the things that you put down be okay is to see it not as like that you're doing it wrong or that, oh man, I wish I could have it all. It's just like, no, this is the payment that I'm making. Yeah. For these little creatures that are my favorite fucking thing.
I agree about that. Definitely about the spouse thing. When you commit to a wife, that does go away, and that is a trade-off. But I would kind of say that, and maybe this is just my positive outlook and what helps me go through it, is that it's not a sacrifice. Is you, as you grow older, get a larger cup to handle more, and the kids can fill you with joy, and you can still go for your own passions. And I think that there's a thing in American culture, especially, we idolize this, person who puts everything on the line and does everything. Wow, look at how successful they are because they put everything on the line. And maybe deep down, you think to yourself, and I think to myself, if I did everything and didn't have any other responsibilities, I know I could be the best in the world at X. Yeah. It's very American. So then by having this kid, it just takes up so much time and energy. There's no way that I could beat that single me. Mm-hmm. But there's a chance that what you learn through being a parent and a father and how that can fill you with joy, you can actually have a larger cup.
Yeah.
You can actually create better story.
Yeah.
You can make better movies. And down the line, you actually look at those two tracks. Matt Naylor without a kid ends up making not as good of movies as you can today, That's a really good framing, man. Yes, you are putting certain things down to pick other things up, but there are opportunities that you would have missed out on by not having kids is kind of your point. There's ways of being that you would never even have known about. Yeah.
There's this pitcher for the Astros. This dude, he's always had nasty stuff. His name's Framber Valdez, but he always had this thing where he'd be crushing, and then like he'd walk a guy and somebody would make an error, and then it was a 7-run inning. The wheels came off. And then he had a kid, and he is now probably one of the 5 best pitchers in baseball. And he just basically just like, I just stopped sweating it quite so much, and it made me better.
Yeah.
And that guy's like a hero of mine.
You learn a lot from your kids, from being a parent. Like you learn a shitload.
Yeah.
About responsibility, about caring for another human being, empathy, love. Like, I didn't know you could feel love this strong. Mm-hmm. I thought I loved my wife like more than anything. It's like the love for a child is so crazy.
Yeah.
Do you think single you could write a movie as good as, like, let's say you had to write about a father's love?
No, I would just write. I wrote different movies. I mean, I do write different, very different things now. Yeah. I really like the way you think about this, man. I mean, you're generally just you're the rare person that's like extraordinarily positive without being an idiot.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? It's something that I admire a lot about you. Because you are like a sunny human being, but not for lack of introspection or for lack of acknowledging the difficulties of life.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I don't know if it's a coping mechanism or what, but that's how I effectively feel. Just like, it's always going to be fucking money, because the thing is, we're not resigning ourselves to a sad existence. We're still like leaning into life with kids.
Yeah.
And also think about this from the child's perspective. We talk a lot about that. A lot of our child's learning is through them watching us, our modeling behavior. If we don't have passions and there's nothing we like, it's kind of hard for that kid to grow up and like understand the zest for life.
Your kids know, man. There was a phase early in my life that I remember where I could just tell my dad just felt locked into like, none of this is for me. I'm in a job that I don't like, you know, and he's just a great dad. I mean, he coached our sports teams. He was fucking there. But there was this other part of him that I remember. I remember he'd come home and I'd say, "How you doing, Dad?" And he'd say, "I'm okay." And I remember that.
Yeah.
And then I watched him find his way back out of that. And he is a very fulfilled dude.
Yeah. Wow.
But that shit stuck. He showed me how to find his way back to himself.
Yeah.
So I think seeing those opportunities to reclaim yourself where you can, not just as not selfish, but as part of the service that you do as a parent.
Yeah.
And then work really hard to give your wife those opportunities too, because she'll be a lot happier to give you yours if she's getting her cookies.